construction cost, I would understand that the construction costs were $98,000. But just to do the architectural and the specifications, I find that outrageous. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Madam.
Shelby Thompson, 385 Fifth Avenue. Mr. Neglia had brought up about the artificial turf or the real turf, and I don't really understand how we could be putting artificial turf on the part that we already cleaned up, and we're going to be basically putting more like artificial and toxic chemicals on top of the part that we just cleaned up. And it's not an eco-friendly option. It's, you know, basically just ground up rubber put onto the field instead of actual grass. So I wanted to know why the conclusion had come to the conclusion to put artificial turf and, you know, why that over real grass. And I don't think most people in town prefer the artificial turf anyway, so that was my question.
Thank you, Shelby. Anyone else wish to be heard? Sir.
Good evening. I'm Fred Heck from 1111 River Plaza, which is the first building closest to River Road. The question I have is about the remediation of the material. Somebody made a comment to me today that materials that are on the other end of the park have a tarp over them, and there's some materials that they're going to pull up that will not have a tarp on them. So I just want to make sure, because we have people with a lot of kids in our building, that all the contaminated material has a tarp on them before they take it away. That's it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Peter.
Paul, 606 Undercliff Avenue. Congratulations, Mr. Vidal, for the election. Thank you for the election. I'd like to ask about the ball field specifically. How dangerous is the soil that's being treated at this point? I see the covering on the south end. They're doing good deep clearing out of the Little League parking lot area and trucking to the south. There was some green screen on the north end, so the wind blew it over Little League area. And they're wondering why our neighbors to the south, 1111, don't have the green screen to keep the dust and dirt down. How dangerous is that soil? Also, where is the soil being taken? Not to somebody else's backyard or ball field, somewhere else. Where that should be a matter of public document. Because we were in trouble last time for that. I also feel there should be real grass in the Little League and also the major field, not an astroturf, a plastic compositive. It should be real grass for a park. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Dennis?
I also have the same concerns that Peter does. Basically, we're apparently are hell-bent on having the fake sod put on. And we've had a lot of testimony here prior to this, a lot of it. And it's pretty compelling that this is not a good idea. We had a lot of testimony here, and almost none of it was in favor, except the people who are had a vested interest in a corporation kind of thing. So, I don't get it. I think this is not in the best interest of anybody, except me. Just, you know, it's just bad. And how did we get this way? How did we get this far? We had all that stuff, and now you turn around and you're gonna just do this? What?
I don't know where you're getting this from, that we're doing
What you
this.
say?
We haven't
We're not
even
gonna-
voted on this.
Yes, right, right. And all this is, you're not gonna.
I don't know where you're getting
You
this
just
from.
talked about it, right? You just went through a whole litany of things that you're gonna do. None of them had anything.
We haven't decided yet on whether we're gonna artificial turf it, sod it, or plant seed. This is a discussion, and I think it was important. Believe me, I'm not leaning towards artificial turf, but the guy gave a great presentation when he was here a couple of months,
Well, we had several people.
yes. But my point was, I have a lot of people that come up to me and ask me, I think we should go with turf. I said, fine, it's your opinion, but I also have a lot of people that come down to the meetings and say we should use this natural grass. I personally asked for him to come in. I thought he did a great presentation, there's a lot of pros. I'm still not really for it. But by all means, this council has not decided of what we're doing. I think it's important that the public gets to find out, are we going with it? What are the pros
Okay.
and cons? And that's what we're doing.
Okay, then I'm reassured, but the way things seem to be going here.
It doesn't seem to be, I thought it was pretty clear, we have people come in and out, and I think it's up to the people to decide and get the direction.
I do too. I just had the feeling.
And I just wanted people to understand. I have people come up to me that have kids. I'll give you an example. I was up doing soccer this weekend. It was raining, and I had parents say, you know what, you can't use the field because it's so wet. We should use artificial turf. You know, there is pros and cons, and I'm not for it. But you don't think that everyone.
We'll wait until the end of the 5 minutes and we'll try to answer the questions the best we can, okay? Like we always try to do. You had your opportunity. Sorry. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Tom?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'd just like to offer my own personal background to Hatfield.
Tommy, name and address.
Tom Chanzy, 611 Undercliff Avenue, Edgewater. If you split the Veterans Field in its totality up into 3 sections, you could address it separately. First of all, as with the gentleman from First Environmental, as well as I believe Mr. Neglia, the north section from River Road, from the Macadam, inclusive of the American Legion, the Rec Center, Little League Field, that basically you're only addressing the Little League Field. If you take the northeast to the southeast section, was the 8 acres with the jogging track and the picnic area, and that includes the center, the prayer area where the stones were from the folks from Hudson Harbor. That could be hydroseeded. That doesn't require, because it's not used, that internal area, the one-third jogging track, that's not used extensively. The major section, south of the rec center to what is that, actually to the road that will be hopefully placed new, that should be sod with underground sprinkling. Because a number of times, and you can address the road department, when you get torrid heat during the summer, when you have 2 or 3 weeks stretch of maybe high 90s, that burns. All right? With the sprinkler, it will keep it fresh. But that field has been pointed out by a number of residents. There's a certain amount, the high degree of erosion over a period of time, that's going to cause valleys. In reference to the astroturf. The other thing is a financial thing. If you listen to the presentation that gentleman presented, it would have cost $750,000, $75,000 a year for 10 years. That's $750,000. It cost you almost $1 million for the placement. if the numbers are correct. And then it's gonna cost you another $1 million at the expiration of the 10 years to replace it. So that's almost $3 million in 10 years, not one. It's $75,000 a year, $750, the initial $1 million, and the $1 million replacement. Plus, I have a selfish point of view. I hate to see, I'm old school. That facility was always ours. They didn't belong with anybody outside influence. It's a different ballgame now. And at some point in time, even when this is completed, you're gonna have to address it. And that's the inclusion of outsiders. That field is gonna be on a publication list put out by DEP as a recipient of Green Acres. And your activities are gonna be subject to outside participation. Not what I wanted, but something you folks are gonna have to live with. You put AstroTurf right next to River Road, our only thoroughfare. That's gonna be like an attraction, say, here, play on me. It really is. And with the type of, you got cigarettes, you're not gonna be able to control that even with police. You got more important areas to control with the police force than to be down Veterans Field worrying about kids. And it's gonna be primarily young kids, too, smoking. And you heard the gentleman, you can't go around there and hand pick and replace or cut out, you look like hell. Let's be honest. If you put all that time and effort and money, you're gonna have something that's gonna look half-assed, so to speak. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Stop.
Sean Gelman, 37 Hooks Lane. In the resolution about the Little League field, the fourth whereas says, whereas in order to expedite the overall replacement and reconstruction of Veterans Field, primarily the Little League field, it is in the best interest of our community to provide a long-lasting, durable playing surface that will not be affected by weather and rain. That's your resolution. Hopefully, you will not act on it. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to make sure that this is open to any agenda and not just the ball field.
No, I mean, if you're here for the ordinance, there will be an open for the ordinance.
Oh, there will be
Yes.
afterwards? Okay,
Yes.
thank you, sir.
Uh,
Thank you, Mayor.
So I'll close the open portion of the meeting. At this time, I would ask for approval of minutes for the October 6th, 2014 work session and closed, and the October 20th, 2014 regular. Do I have an introduction?
I'll introduce it. Before we move on to that, can we discuss a couple of the...
Oh, you know what, I apologize, and that's what I wanted to do, I'm sorry. That's what I'm trying to do better at, but, Mike, could you help us out with some of the questions as far as the reason why we're going after the Little League field? And, you know, as if we need other people to jump in as far as the soil, the piles that are next to 1111, and do these residents have concerns?
Mr. Mayor, you know, I just want to throw in something really quick. You know, one of the reasons that, you know, Mike, and you know, is why we're entertaining, and I use the word entertaining the use of AstroTurf on the Little League field, because it was expressed to us by the gentleman who runs it, Joe Chevalier, who runs the Little League, correct? And he expressed his interest in using AstroTurf. That's why we are currently considering that as an option for the field. And we also have to be very, very careful about your choice of words about saying that AstroTurf is a toxic product. AstroTurf is used not only across all over New Jersey in several schools and professional venues, but all over the United States and the world. So I think we need to be very, very careful about your choice of words and saying, you know, using the word, especially in this, something as sensitive as what we're going through right now. Because I'm sure that if it was something toxic, it wouldn't be used in schools and Little League fields and football fields, both in college and professional venues all over the world.
All right. Okay, in terms of any of the remediation questions, I'll defer those to Tom, the stockpiles. In terms of one of the questions, in terms of our proposal and what it is for, it's on a time and material basis not to exceed the number that was discussed tonight, but
new bid documents do have to be prepared. You have to put out another public bid. We're not redoing the entire design that you have already paid for, both on the Little League field as well as on the big field. But we're gonna have to, on the bigger portion of the field, when that comes, it's gonna have to be resurveyed. We have to determine the new elevations on it. And don't forget, as it was discussed, the site was raising to elevation 13, which was higher. So that does have to be all included in the new bid document. So the proposal that we furnished to you tonight was to prepare that plan and specification, to go out to public bid, to accept bids, to do the bid tabulation sheets, and make the recommendation of award to the governing body. In terms of the synthetic field versus the grass, you heard the presentation. That's a mayor and council decision and a client decision on what you want. If you want to go back to grass on the Little League field and go back to where it was, that's your decision, and we would put the plan and specification out in that fashion. And in terms of breaking the site down into the quadrants that one of the gentlemen came up tonight and mentioned, we will definitely look at that. You know, it's our vision and our goal, as much as the mayor and council, is to get as much of that park open as soon as possible. So if we can go into those quadrants that were described and do it and open it, we will absolutely look into that.
Mike, please explain to the public why we're raising it up to 13 feet. I don't think a lot of people are in tune with what's going on, and please elaborate on the 13 feet elevation.
After Superstorm Sandy, as everybody is well aware of, as Edgewater as well as anybody else, FEMA has come out with new floodplain maps and new data to support higher floodplain elevations on anything that you build, okay? So what ended up happening was, in Edgewater as well as other communities across the state of New Jersey, that floodline elevation increased 2 to 3 feet, depending where you were. So at that point in time, it makes sense that you don't want to put whatever it is, grass, hydro seed, or a synthetic field, and then have it get completely flooded and washed out. So the recommendation was to raise the elevation of the field up to those new standards that are just being adopted now. But that publication from FEMA came out about a year and a half ago. Maybe 2 years ago, it was starting to be circulated in a draft format to all communities. And what we have recommended, not only in Edgewater, but in anywhere else in any of the communities we represented, if you were building a building in the town, we would recommend you build up to the elevations that are being recommended by FEMA, because there's scientific data that proves that you have a chance of flooding out to that. So to protect your investment, that's what we told anybody that came in for plans for planning boards and anything like that. We believe that municipalities should hold themselves to that standard and protect your investment in that field by doing the same thing. So that's where the elevations came. They're not an elevation that we just arbitrarily picked out of the air. They were based on the FEMA maps that were just most recently adopted.
Mike, we have a photo of a nice grass Little League field here. Can you tell us why we had to go back in and redo the field?
The resident wasn't wrong. At that point in time, the field was just about 100% finished. We were going to go back and do a final inspection of it, but since that time, the field, because of the contamination, everybody had to exit the site. It went in terms of it wasn't maintained and operated. So the sod, and you can't just go cut it because it was never treated, it was never irrigated. It's in bad shape. So again, I haven't been on the site because I'm not allowed to be on the site, but you're gonna have to fix that field. If you do go in a grass back to sod, at a very minimal, you're gonna rip up the sod, rip up some of the material, and you're gonna put it back and put the sod back in. You're gonna check the irrigation system, because now everybody forgets, we have heavy equipment right next to the parking lot, several feet deep. All of that's gotta be rechecked and make sure that it's a proper working order. One of the things that we discussed in my office, again, if it goes to a synthetic field, and again, that's your decision, I don't want to have old irrigation lines or irrigation lines that aren't being used running underneath the field. They would be removed, right? Because the last thing we want to have is a leak in a pipe that you don't need. So those are the things that have to be done. I mean, it's like anything else. If you build a lawn and landscape it in your own house and didn't touch it for a long period of time, you're going to try to salvage as much of it as you can, but there is going to be a certain amount of it that has to be redone. That's just unfortunate, but that it is. And the resident is right. At that point in time, when those photos were taken, that the field was just about done.
Question, Mike? regarding sod compared to hydro seed, January 31st, remediation's done, and we start working on the Little League field. If the council and mayor votes for, say, sod, how long would that take for, you're saying that whole season, or you're saying?
What's recommended, okay? Now, I'm gonna give you, two answers to your question. I'm gonna give you what's recommended, and I'm gonna tell you that some towns that we put sod in have pushed it. I'm gonna tell you pros and cons. So what's recommended is whenever you sod, you should go through a full growing season, okay? What a full growing season is, a spring and a fall, because that gives the sod the best chance to take in its location that you put it in, and it gets very well established. So when you start that heavy use and wear and tear on it, it'll hold up the best, okay? A lot of it goes into timing on when you put the sod down. If you put sod down now, or let's say we put sod down in September or October, it's like a half a growing season. You might get it to the point where you can't pull the sod up, but it never really knits until the following spring, okay? And then one of the tests you do on it, because you don't want a kid or an athlete or even a person to go and try to plant on it and that sod slides and moves away. So you have to wait till it actually grows and it roots. It'll look beautiful, it'll mow, it'll look ready to go, but if you try to cut on it or plant on it, you have to wait that growing season. And the growing season is fall and spring. Now I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. If you get it down early enough in the season, you get through, just think about your own lawns and try to put it in everybody's perspective. In the spring, your lawn is the thickest, it's the hardest to mow. In the summer, it kind of simmers back down. In the fall, you get a little burst for a short period of time, and it goes. So if you put sod down in the very, very beginning of the season, let's say April, May, right? Towards the fall, end of the year, you get pretty close that when you go to inspect that sod, that you got a pretty good net. But a lot of it's also dependent on weather and other elements on it. So, like I said to you before, if you put grass, whether it's sod or hydro seed, hydro seed, again, it's the same thing. You'll drive by the field on River Road with hydro seed, it'll look very, very green from the road. But in most applications, you have to usually reseed, because the seed gets displaced, it gets moved around by rain. So when you go to look on top of it, you want a nice, thick, healthy pile of turf. So, those are the things. That's why, you got to be more patient with grass, and that's the time frame. So you can't rush grass growing. You got to just wait for it to grow. I don't know if you have any questions.
Mayor, I think you should confirm again the standard, the cleanup standard.
Yes. Well, Tom, I was going to ask if you could come up and discuss the soil. A bunch of residents have some concerns as to the soil piles and what's being removed, and just if we could, and where is the soil going, and then we are sticking to the original standard of.
Yes, it's the whole intention to remediate the PCBs to the most stringent standard that DEP has. You need to recall that there's other elements out there due to historic fill, mainly base neutral compounds and metals, that even before our involvement were going to be the subject of a deed notice. So that needs to be understood. And as Mike said, this whole site is going to be capped with surface material to bring it to a FEMA grade. Well, that's bringing it up feet in elevation, so that adds another layer of protection. And at the end of the day, we are charged with making this park as protected as it can be. And do you have any other questions I should recall?
Well, as far as the soil being removed right now, or the stockpiles of soils, we had a concern from a resident at 1111. He's the southern portion of it.
Well, all the soil that's being excavated, or I hate to take it called soil, but all the material that's being excavated is being disposed of at approved and licensed disposal facilities. So it's not going to any beneficial use place, it's going to a certified disposal facility.
Tom, what about what is piled there? I think that's what their concern is.
That was the next question, and there certainly are, everything that's being excavated is staged on and being covered with plastic. We're not excavating any material that is not going to be covered with plastic. There are existing piles out there that have been there for a long period of time, that some are not contaminated and some are, and those, notwithstanding, all of the piles are going to be removed and disposed of properly.
Are they covered?
No, those piles are not covered. It would be logistically very difficult to cover those piles. The material that we're excavating out of the ground that has the hazardous levels that you see as red on the map, they are being covered, as well as the blue material that we're taking out of the ground.
So what's the standard?
Because we need to work on those piles, so they're gonna be loaded or segregated out, because if you look at the park in the distance, you'll notice there's enormous blocks of basaltic rock in those piles. So, you know, those gotta be pulled out, put in trucks separately than the finer material. So, but to answer the question, everything that's being excavated from the remedial perspective is being staged on and covered in plastic.
Tom, one more question. The recent bid spec that we just awarded back in September had in the bid spec required that whoever was awarded the job had an approved disposal site for the material, correct? That's correct.
So all the materials being disposed of, we have air monitors around the excavation areas. We've been fortunate to get enough precipitation now where our infield geologist is looking at the dust generation, and there's not a lot of dust being generated during the excavation process, only because it's been naturally wetted down. We do have a tanker truck there to wet down soils as they dry out. But, you know, the main player here is the air monitors that are around the perimeter of the excavation.
And by the way, I spoke to Dan Latanzi about that today, and he had mentioned to me that they have not gone off at all yet, so that means that the levels have been low.
Yeah, there are several alarms that go off if anything exceeds 10 microns particle size, and we have no exceedances of the particulate in the air.
What's the standard of remediation, Tom?
DEP has a standard of remediation of 0.2 for PCBs. The EPA does not recognize that, quite frankly, and they have a standard of 1 for both for the same use.
And what is our project?
Our project, the intent is to take it to 0.2.
Also, I think it's important because that question was asked too about explaining the difference between a impenetrable barrier versus the delineation marker. I think there's been some confusion in understanding what that actually is.
Okay, well, what's required is called a presumptive remedy. Is when you excavate soil and you're going to notice or cap any historic filled material, you put down a demarcation barrier. And I want to get away from this whole thing of a impermeable barrier, because that would not play in this remediation, because A, it would not allow any of the material to drain. You would have water ponding on top of an impermeable liner. And this isn't a landfill application. Really what it is meant to do is act as a physical marker for anybody who digs. You know, if you have to replace a utility in the future, that, you know, if they're excavating down, they see this marker and they know it has a purpose.
Questions? All right, thank you. Thank you. Phil, could you touch on the IPARC question?
Yes, Mayor. IPARC has made a request that they be permitted to allow someone other than themselves to construct the affordable housing units on the redevelopment project, which they have been involved with. As you know, under the redevelopment agreement, IPARC was required to build 75 units of affordable housing. They have, I believe it's within their right, they want to sub that out to a different contractor who would then take over the responsibility. We have put in the resolution that you have before you this evening that if IPARC chooses to go ahead and do that, they have to make full disclosure under the land use law as precisely who are the principals of 45 River Road Associates LLC. That is part of the municipal land use law, who are the owners, who are the stockholders. So that information would be provided to us if and when that agreement between IPARC and 45 River Road goes forward. We also are included in the resolution that IPARC remains a responsible party under the redevelopment agreement to make sure that those affordable housing units do get built. Because, right now they're just seeking to bring in another contractor to help them construct those units. And we consulted with our COA representative today, is that correct, Ray? Megan York, concerning this particular request, and she did not see any problem or objection to it. So I think the resolution that we have before us tonight kind of incorporates all the concerns, and I think the borough's protected to make sure that it's done the right way.
Perfectly within their legal rights to do what they
Sure, yeah. As long as the units get built and they're in compliance with COA and all all the other rules and regulations are complied with. That's, it helps it, get it done. And we don't object.
Any other questions?
All right, so answer this.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mayor. I know Mary had inquired about the Mills and Schnoring proposal for the first aid squad. The proposal that you have a resolution this evening, the plans are essentially